President Trump, Madison Square Garden, Joe Rogan, and the Bible. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27, we read, "But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong." That's God's word. Beautiful way to put it. I'll explain the connection to me and why I'm saying all this, but I'll do it by way of talking about the time a pretty corrupt, really junior public official with the water department where we used to live outside of Seattle came around their neighborhood and destroyed people's homes. And thank God I had the foresight to demand that he sign a contract before I got access to our house. Then another guy showed up. That guy was Trump. He was Trump. I mean, he wasn't President Trump, not Donald J. Trump. His name wasn't Trump. I don't remember his name. But he showed up and set that whole thing straight in about 6 seconds. That's an exaggeration. About 60 seconds. I'll explain this in just a second with the help of our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-Todd-Herman-Show, and the great grace of God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. Now, from the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times to which God has decided we shall live. Sorry if I sounded distracted late getting on the opening. I was leaving a note to the people watching in the live stream. Always appreciate that. Good morning, guys. Thank you very much for being there. Watching and or listening later, we love you equally. So there we were living in outside of Seattle in a place called South Park. That's legitimately the name. We preferred to call it North Burien, but it was South Park. And this, my wife called me at work, and she said, "Hey, there's a guy here from the water department, and they're doing some work, and he brought a backhoe, and he's just saying going to use our easement, and he's here." And I said, "Okay, put him on the phone, please." She said, "Well, he says he has an easement." I said, "I understand." This guy's name was Kerry. I remember his name. So he got on the phone and said, "Hey, we're just doing some work out here, improving drainage in the area. Just need access to your yard on our easement." I said, "Yeah, Carrie, your easement is for you to check the meter. Your easement's about a foot wide, so you can walk onto our property. It is not an easement for a backhoe. So, no, you may not get on our property until you sign a contract." "Well, I'm a city official with the water department." "Yeah, you said that when you said I'm with the water department." Got that. Thank you for explaining it again. Here's what I'm telling you. You will not put that equipment on my property. There's no way you can get it on there without violating my property. And your easement simply doesn't allow for this. So, no. "Well, we're doing this all around the neighborhood." "Well, good. Then go do it to other people's houses and come back to me when you have a contract." "Well, we don't write contracts like that." "Then I will." So I sat down and wrote a very simple contract, and that is that he would return, if there was damage as a result of his work, he would return our home and yard to the condition in which he found it, any damage that resulted from his work. And I went by his office and gave him the contract, 2 copies. I signed mine, he signed his, and then we reversed it, counter-executed. So we each had a copy. And I went about my day. I had been working pretty feverishly to build this downstairs room. And I'm not good at construction, so that's a lot for me. And my brother-in-law was kind enough to come over and help me finish this off. And it was a beautiful room. Really, really nice job. And my wife and I, at the time, girlfriend, we went out to eat. And it was a horrible Seattle rainstorm. And when we came home, my wife went downstairs and she said, "Oh, Todd." "What?" And our basement was so flooded. And all that drywall, all that work, all that new carpet, trashed. And not only that, when I opened the back door, we had a back exit. So this was a 2-story home, split level. And out the back door, there was a drain in these, at the bottom of these concrete steps, and it was pouring water, and it was gushing water. So we had a shop vac, and I asked my wife, please go get the shop vac. I want to try to limit the damage. And we ended up calling the water department at this emergency line, and praise God, a guy came out. And he actually stayed with me all night. And I asked him, how much water do you think we've bailed out? He said, probably 4, 5, 6,000 gallons. No. He goes, yeah, because we've had this. He brought his pump, his sub pump. It was pouring automatically from one end of the house. He borrowed another one. It was pouring from another end of the house. And then he and I were using the shop vac to continue to just try to keep water from that man stayed there all night. And it never really did slow down, but he left his sump pumps and say, I'll come back and get these. I was exhausted. So the guy from the water department, Kerry, came by. A series of phone calls alerted him. And he came by, 9 o'clock, started business, and proceeded to tell me that this had nothing to do with his work. And then I heard from my neighbors that their houses had flooded too, but nothing to do with his work. People who'd lived there 30 years had never seen a flood, not one time. No basement had ever flooded on that block until they did that work. That can't be my work. So we called another guy, and he showed up. And let me tell you why he was President Trump here in a second. Because he showed up with a completely different approach. An approach that the city government said, this doesn't make any sense, and it couldn't be. And I'll tell you why he was President Trump. And I'll relate this to Madison Square Garden and the Joe Rogan Experience podcast that President Trump did for 3 hours, unscripted. Kamala Harris couldn't do that for 15 minutes. Because the simplicity of this was so shocking to me, and it was so dramatic when we actually did what this guy told us to do. It's just like this with my shoulder. When I went and got stem cells in my shoulder for my second shoulder surgery, and I experienced the difference in that shoulder versus the other, and I was able to move again in 11 weeks versus 48, being able to do push-ups and pull-ups in 11 weeks versus 48 stinking weeks. The simplicity of God's design. These stem cells from umbilical cords and placentas that are burned as medical trash in America, a country that loves abortion. They went into my shoulder, they destroyed the inflammation, and then they immediately began rebuilding the tissue that was damaged, A, in the surgery, and B, with the tear I'd done to myself. So it could have been another 48 weeks. It wasn't, it was 11. And the pain lessened. This applies to people who've had neurological damage, traumatic brain injuries. I've seen people walk out who are told they'd live in wheelchairs. This applies to people who have this constant numbing and buzzing in their fingers. This could be neuropathy. It applies to people who have constant back pain. So often, it can't be addressed any other way, but renew.healthcare can help you. Go to renue.healthcare. That's renue.healthcare. And they'll tell you if they can help you. Thumbs up, thumbs down, and they'll even tell you the percentage chance of success. Please do make sure they know that you're part of the Todd Herman Show family. So this guy comes and he shows up, if we call him, and I don't remember how we found him, but we found him, and he shows up and he brings his backhoe up and he pulls right up in front and he walks over, he looks at our house, he brings his team and he says, okay, sir, here's what we're going to do. We're going to dig right here. Let me tell you what these people have done. Your house is floating. Right now, your house is floating on 20, 30,000 gallons of water because I'm looking up the hill. I've got these phone calls from these other houses. You're the only one who has this contract. Here's what they did is they went around your house and they removed all the weeping tiles. What are weeping tiles? He goes, those are the things that kept the water away from your home. So what they wanted to do is not have it go into their drainage. I go, why? He goes, because it costs them money. They have to purify that water when it goes into their drainage. They don't want it going into the drains. So they're trying to limit their exposure. So they wanted it to stick below your house. You're kidding us. Nope, that's what they did. I'll prove it. And Kerry and his team are standing there, and they're stunned that this guy spoke these words. And Kerry said, "How dare you say something like this?" And he goes, "Oh, quit it. Quit it. Quit it. Just don't get out of my way." Now, I think this guy was on cocaine, incidentally, by the way, constantly going to his nose. But he was totally brilliant. So he said, "I want permission to bring the backhoe up." I said, "Yep, bring it up." So he brings his backhoe up right to the corner of our house that was facing the drain. There was a hill behind us and facing the drain. And he brings his backhoe and they dig. And then this guy goes, "Stop right there. Stop. Everybody get out of the way." And he jumps down into the hole with the shovel and he says, "Get ready to pull me out." And he's poking around. He goes, okay, pull me out. He himself got into the backhoe and he dug a trench through our yard. And it was like a 10-foot deep trench all the way to the corner of the yard. Then he came up in the backhoe and he cleared, I don't know, not much dirt. And that 10-foot trench filled with water. It utterly gushed down the street, and they weren't kidding. It was 20, 30,000 gallons of water that poured out. And this guy said, "That was below your house. Your house was floating. It may become destabilized, and let me show you what they removed." So he showed me what a weeping tile would look like. This had surrounded your house, and that water was going in there, through your yard, down there, but that's not what they wanted. I was the only person who got my money back. I didn't have to go to insurance or anything. The water department had to pay because I had the contract. The guy who showed up was Trump. We can't build a wall. That can't be done. We can't make other countries pay more for NATO. That can't be done. We can't bring manufacturing back to this country. That's a bygone era. We're a service economy now. We're a knowledge economy. Learn to code. It can't be done. We can't avoid fighting wars constantly. That can't be done. We always have to fight wars. Always. President Trump showed up and said, "Yeah, let me show you." God's word. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27, "But God shows what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God shows what is weak in the world to shame the strong." John chapter 7, verse 24, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." Romans chapter 8, verse 28. "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." President Trump showed up and said, "Dig right here." And here is President Trump talking with Joe Rogan about something that can't be done.
First of all, I love this idea of you teaming up with Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And I love this Make America Healthy Again idea, because there are chemicals and ingredients in our food that are illegal in other countries because they've been shown to be toxic. There's pesticides and herbicides, and there's a lot of that's been sprayed on our food that really is unnecessary. And there's a lot of health consequences that people are suffering from a lot of these things. And
I brought this chart for you.
Beautiful.
Because I had a feeling you'd be asking me.
Thank you.
Look at this chart. These are healthier countries. Look where the United States is. I'm going to send this to RFK Jr. Look at that.
This is, well, something along the, I was actually talking to RFK today, and he told me that more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military because of their health.
I could see it.
That's
crazy. A lot of it's obesity.
So here's the life expectancy versus health expenditure.
Same chart.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
USA.
Wow,
yeah.
that's pretty good.
Jamie's the best.
He's very good.
He's the best.
But no, but look at that. Look where
at
the USA is.
It's not good. And that's our food. That's our diet.
So what you see is we are a country that continues to spend more and more and more on what we're supposed to call health care. Meanwhile, of course, you can't get placental and umbilical cord stem cells here. We spend more and more and more, and our health gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah, it's the food, sure. It's the medicine. A third of this country or so, in certain demographics, a third of this country, well, no, a third of this country is on some form of psychotropic, antidepressant or otherwise. With young people in certain populations, it's 2/3. So that's what President Trump brought, and that's what he's showing. And Rogan's team, sourced that and brought it up so that you could see it. If you're watching the video, you could see it.
So that's sedentary lifestyle. That's our diet. That's the chemicals we ingest. That's what that is.
But RFK is going to be very, I think he's a great guy.
I love the fact that you guys teamed up.
Yeah.
And are you completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental. Because, he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think,
just keep him out of that.
To fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of it a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. But I got to be a little bit careful with the liquid gold,
I understand.
Well, and also with abortion, because RFK Jr. is an extremist on abortion and a lot of other things. But he spent his life monitoring what pharma does, which is part of this. A right sizing of this would be, how about if pills are last? I mean, this is a simple thing. It goes to the Hippocratic Oath. If you think of the Hippocratic Oath in the way that we are to think of it, first do no harm. And your kid's depressed, you're depressed. How about let's make sure that you have sunshine and exercise, and let's right size your diet. Let's shift things around before we put you on pills at all. And every pharma company, every single one, should be required to disclose how addictive a thing is. Like it should be like a Richter scale. That you get a pill and it's a 10 for being addictive. This means that it's a fentanyl style addiction. And they should be required to provide what's it called, satiation. I forget the medical phrase for stepping down off of a dose. They should be forced to provide that for everybody, and to aid in coming down off this stuff for everybody. And that should be factored in to prescribing this stuff. Doctors should be forced, hey, if they prescribe it, they should be forced to unprescribe it to help people get off of it. But that can't be done. You can't have a guy like RFK Jr. and President Trump teaming up. That can't be done. Because the parties are inexorably divided, because the Democrats, they're in it for the rights of the people. The Republicans want to stomp on faces. President Trump couldn't bring the country together. It can't be done. We know he's a very divisive figure. Ask the media. He's very controversial. That's controversial? Having a wall has been made controversial? Meanwhile, look at the numbers with Hispanic voters and what they see in terms of illegal immigration and what's going on in urban centers. It can't be done. President Trump can't gain more Hispanic voters, and yet he is. He can't gain black voters, and yet he is. It can't be done, but he's doing it. I can remember conversations in D.C. where I said, like Michael Steele, before he went nuts, was all about let's reach out to the black community. And people said, oh, come on. Black people aren't going to vote for us. They all think we're racist. You know what will help with that? Just don't talk to them. Refuse to talk to them. Then they go, oh, I guess they're not racist. Look, they refuse to talk to us. That means that they like us. They're not racist just because they refuse to talk to us. President Trump speaks to people the same way. You can't go Trump, the Black Journalists Association. He can't do that. Yeah, and he went in and said, you guys are so biased. You're so unfair to me. That was a very rude introduction. You're a very rude woman. He spoke to her the same way he would speak to anybody. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not. But it can't be done. A system that's been purposely broken can't be unbroken purposely? Sure it can. It's a simple thing. The water department removed the weeping tiles from your house. That's why everybody's houses are flooded on this block. It's never happened. I'll unflood your house. I'll make them put the weeping tiles back on your house, but no one else's, which is what we did. I hope the comparison is clear. God takes these simple things and he shames the wise. I mean, Mitch McConnell's been in the Senate for 2,041 years. And he is trying to kneecap President Trump in the closing weeks of this campaign because we can't build a wall. Chicken in every pot, pot in every chicken. Mitch McConnell. A guy named David Sachs he's a technologist, and he's been one of those guys who has shifted over and gone Trump because he saw what was happening in San Francisco. And he speaks to something about Kamala Harris and her ability to go do something like this with Joe Rogan, which is not a thing that she could possibly ever do because Kamala Harris doesn't exist. She's a collection of positions put up on the teleprompters. We'll talk about that. David Axelrod is the guy who got Barack Obama elected. He and Bill Ayers. And he used to have a fancy mustache. And he actually comes out and says some things about Kamala Harris here in comparison to her being able to go do something like this. I need you to hear and or see these things. The evidence is mounting that President Trump is gaining this momentum, the thing in Madison Square Garden. Jonathan Karl, ABC News commentator, he agrees with something that a Trump spokesperson said. They even used the same phrase. Remind me to mention that, Alex, please. I forget if I don't. There's mounting evidence that the companies who try to sell you things like I'm about to do, where they take effort to look at an audience, get to know the host, let the host try the product before the host ever speaks a word about the product, they are more honest and better minded about your health than companies who go the old way. So I'm speaking about Bioptimizers. I don't talk enough about the company. The company was founded because two guys decimated their bodies. They were competitive bodybuilders, which makes you look great. You can be incredibly strong. And at the end of a long career where you're both world champs, it can just destroy your bodies. And it's not just your joints. People say it's always the joints. No, sometimes it's your immune system. Sometimes it's your digestive system because of what you've done to your body. These bulking and slimming cycles, bulk cut, bulk cut, bulk cut. Body's not designed for that. So Matt and Wade found themselves looking great, feeling awful. So they took their company that had been making some nutritional supplements and they said, how can we help people overcome the problems we have that are just general to society? So they started as a company that worked with elite athletes. Now their products have gotten so good that it's very, very good for the general population. So they release products like Mass Zymes. Mass Zymes helps ordinary people like you and me maintain muscle even when we're going through a restrictive diet for fat loss. It helps us, in fact, produce more amino acids in our bodies, 1,200% more according to a test I can mention and get you, and they'll send you copies of the test. There's side-by-side. Berkshire International University in Bosnia did the test, and it provides you digestive comfort, which I happen to appreciate being digestively comfortable, if you know what I mean. I think you do. So go to bioptimizers.com/Todd. You'll get 10% off all their products, including Mass Zymes. It's bioptimizers.com/Todd. Stop letting poor digestion keep you from reaching your full potential. David Sachs talking about why Kamala Harris is all of a sudden out there pushing herself, why her people who run her are pushing her into all sorts of media outlets, but not things like Joe Rogan, where she'd be forced to actually talk to people.
Again, there's 25 days left, but if you're wondering why is Harris all of a sudden doing interviews, it's because their internals started showing that she was in trouble. So they decided to get her out more. And
or is it the other way? Is it that her Howard Stern interviews or whatever are causing her to lose votes?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, so,
which one is it, do you think? Because I don't know when, I don't have the dates of all these polls versus that.
No, I think it's what I predicted a couple of months ago. It's the doom loop. So what I said 2 months ago is that if Harris gets behind, she's going to have to abandon this sort of basement strategy of not doing interviews. She's going to have to start doing interviews. The problem is she's not good at interviews. And if she does more interviews, she's going to fall further behind in the polls, and it could cause a doom loop. So that's where we appear to be right now. I said that on August 30th.
The doom loop. We got to keep putting her out there, but people hate her when she's out there. But we got to put her out there, man. So they tried Tim Walz's wife, who got yanked out of doing campaigns after she just displayed this bizarre behavior in, of all places, Maine. They tried her in a safe Democrat state and yanked her. The bizarreness of this ticket cannot be overstated. And when you can just go pull up a guy, just a dude, and you can just take a dude off the street, you want to see why people like Kamala Harris hate social media, why there's this foreign entity here called the Center for Countering Digital Hate. They're walking around in America doing voter turnout for Kamala Harris, they're British. And it's this well-funded dark money group. And they're also advising her that she needs to kill. The quote is, kill Elon Musk's Twitter. That's a strategy paper they wrote for her if she makes it into the White House, because they don't want us to be able to source things like I mentioned earlier. Jonathan Karl, he's an ABC News news guy, opinionist, I think, but news guy. He said that President Trump has started a movement. He was at that rally in Madison Square Garden for 6 hours. He said only Trump could pull this off. A guy named Tim Murtaugh is a Trump spokesperson. He went on Fox and Friends. Guess what he said? President Trump started a movement. Only he could do this. And it was a phenomenal thing. 25,000 people inside, 10,000 outside. Only Trump could do it. Virtually word for word what an ABC News guy said that a Trump spokesperson said. We can pull clips off of this, and we'll do this week, and people can see these clips. People can see, 25,000 people in New York. This is why they want Elon Musk's Twitter shut down, so they can pretend, there was no one there. They also want it shut down because of instances like this.
This guy just yelled in the street, Trump 2024. What makes you love Donald Trump?
If you're truly a patriotic American, how could you not love Donald Trump? If you actually are somebody that does your research and your due diligence as opposed to being pushed by somebody else's propagandist talking points, how could you hate Donald Trump? He's the most popular businessman in American history. If you wanted a movie to be popular throughout all of before 2016, who has the most cameos? I find it funny that as soon as he became a Republican, he became racist. But name me that racist that won an NAACP award. I'll wait. Didn't we have peace around the world when Trump was in office? Why are we in war right now? Oh, and for that daggone bill y'all want to keep talking about the border, well, y'all were okay with the administration giving $60 billion to Ukraine so they can put 1,500 at the border. Here's something else deeper for you to think about. Didn't they leave millions and millions of guns in Afghanistan unguarded and unattended and left the country? Directly after that, Xi Jinping and Putin came down and gave them legitimacy. Well, what happens after that? Oh, didn't Biden give Putin access to a gas pipeline? And then directly after that, he went to war with Ukraine? And then was it a coincidence that one of our basketball stars got locked up in Russia and we traded her for Victor Boot? So we traded the Lord of War for Brittany Griner with a whole bunch of unattended guns in Afghanistan. That's what you voted for. That's better than Trump. You need to wake up, bro.
When you can pull that off social media and it is that good, and the Democrat leader is Kamala Harris, despite the fact that he didn't mention the tanks and the helicopters, the guns he got, he didn't mention the computers, the communication devices with the names and faces of Afghani citizens who helped us, who are now dead or in prison being tortured. Other than that, flawless. Man, if I were a black American, particularly a black woman, let's say I was and I could right now say I am a black woman, and I would be. But if I was a black woman, say age, like Kamala, and I'd run companies and bought and sold them, and maybe I'm even a lawyer, and I'd be looking at her going, that's black. That's the black woman. With an inability to express herself in any form of coherence. And the guy in the street can do it that well. That's why they hate social media. That's why they hate President Trump, because that guy was just like the guy who came to our house. No, it's very, very complicated. The issues around Trump, there's a lot of racism, white supremacy, latent white supremacy, non-symptomatic white supremacy. There is the holdover from the colonial age. There's a lot of sexism. Men won't vote for, women won't vote for him, men won't vote for him, blah, 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 blah. There's the fact that he uses massive propaganda, very Hitlerian. This whole rally, that was Hitler, and he's using a psyop right out of Mein Kampf, and people don't understand this. He really is still a Russian plant. They don't get this, and this guy's coming along going, dig here. Right here. They removed the tiles from the house. That's just dig here. So God uses the foolish in the world to shame the wise. God shows what is weak in the world to shame the strong. City comes along and says, we're going to make your house float. Dude on cocaine comes along and says, yeah, just dig here. Seriously do think he was on campaign or cocaine. We'll get to David Axelrod here in a second. David Axelrod advised Barack Hussein Obama, God bless Rush Limbaugh, to talk about the economy and to go give these soaring speeches that I still think Bill Ayers wrote a bunch of those speeches. And I think there's good evidence for that, by the way, just analyzing Ayers' writings. You know who Ayers is. He was a domestic terrorist in this country, helped with the weathermen. When he got exonerated in trial for blowing up police stations, etc., he said, guilty as hell, free as a bird, God bless America. He said that while standing on an American flag, by the way, just so we're clear. He went on to be an august and well-respected professor, made a lot of money advising companies and such, and then he got to help Barack Hussein Obama launch his political career by having it launched in his house. That's who he is. So he had him talk about the economy. And here's where we sit with the economy right now, and this is important to understand. All the rules are gone. All the limits are off. All the logic is gone. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to sit and listen to Zach Abraham, watch him at a free live webinar. He always answers questions. He's going to talk about current events. He's going to talk about how these things can affect our economy. This is going to be the first post-election live free webinar, so we'll know who's in the White House or going to be in the White House. Zach will be able to address this. He'll be able to address what it means for your retirement. And if you're 5, 10, even 15 years from retirement, this is absolutely a must attend. Absolutely. So you can go register at knowyourriskradio.com. This is coming up. It's going to be Thursday the 21st, 3:30 Pacific this month. No, pardon me, next month, November. The 21st of November, 3:30 Pacific. It's free, but you have to register to attend. So go to knowyourriskradio.com, KNOW, knowyourriskradio.com. And the government wants me to make sure that you understand this very clearly.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.
So when you look at David Axelrod, I mean, minus the mustache. And he was one of those guys who can pull the mustache off. I can't pull the mustache off, but there are guys who can pull it off. Like Tom Selleck should never shave that thing. At no point should he ever walk around with a mustache. And you could pass a statute, I guess, depending on where he lives, because he just doesn't look good without it. I can't wear one, just like I can't wear a hat without a beard. Only time I look okay wearing a ball cap is when I have a beard. Otherwise, I look like a great, big, huge freak. Or a small freak, I think, because I look smaller that way. This is David Axelrod talking about Kamala Harris. And remember, he's a lifelong Democrat, straight out of the Chicago stool.
When she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city. And she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. Anderson asked a direct question, would you be stronger on Israel than Trump? And there was a 7-minute answer, but none of it related to the question he was asking.
Right. But we can't have President Trump and RFK Jr. come together. That can't happen. They can't come together to make the country more healthy. Jay Caldwell in the live chat, there's no money in healthy people and there's no money in dead people. V. Brandon Smith responds, yeah, unless the dead person votes Democrat. There's a lot of money in that. Good point. Thank you for being in the live chat. So Axelrod says what we all see, but we can't call this out. Notice this. As Mitch McConnell is attempting to kneecap President Trump and Rick Scott, he once again refused to support Rick Scott's senatorial campaign, but he'll support any leftists in the Republican Party, anyone who will do his thing. And McConnell, and may God save his soul, he's near the end. We've seen him all just so cognitively declined. Notice that he doesn't come out and say, you guys did a coup. President Trump has called it this. The comedian Jim Gaffigan has called it this. Why is it that the entire Republican Party isn't saying, wait, you know you did a coup, right? Because they want to do it. They want to be able to do the same thing. They looked at that. I guarantee the party bosses looked at that and said, wow, that was slick. I like that. We should do that. Let's not criticize that too much. We're going to want to use that one. because voting is really messy because people sometimes vote the wrong way. What with President Trump and all coming along and saying, dig here, build the wall here, cut taxes here, and you'll get companies coming back into the country. Cut them this way, and you'll get companies once again investing in this country. Do that. So you take Kamala Harris and this thing she did the other week where a person in the crowd, and again, maybe it's a setup, Jesus is king or Jesus is Lord. I think he said Jesus is king. And Kamala responded as, remember, you're at the wrong rally. You're supposed to be at the smaller one up the street. Come on. So then she goes on CNN, and Anderson Cooper asks her a question about faith. And let's just listen to the casual little lie that says so much about Kamala Harris. Just this casual little lie about how her faith matters to her, how she had to call her pastor when Joe Biden, decided to step down for the good of the country. When he decided. He wasn't pushed out the window by her and Pelosi and Barack Hussein Obama. So she needed the consultation of her pastor. Listen to the casual lie.
But I just called him. I needed that spiritual kind of connection. I needed that advice. I needed a prayer. And there's a part of the scripture that talks about Esther.
There is? Huh. Where would you find that? There's a part of the scripture that talks about Esther. That's an esoteric name. Man, there's a lot of female names in the Bible. Wait, no, there's not, actually. The women weren't named. Where would you find Esther?
And a time such as this, and
like I opened the show with, these are the days through which God has decided we shall live. Times such as these, right?
And that's what we talked about. And it was very comforting for me.
Sure
and
so comforting.
Do you pray every day?
I do pray every day.
Yeah.
I do pray every day, sometimes twice a day.
Yeah.
I grew up
with an atheist father and a Hindu mother.
So we grew up a little neighborhood church in Oakland, 23rd Avenue Church.
Oh, wait. No. You were in Oakland. You were Berkeley. You lived in Oakland.
God. And I was raised to believe in a loving God. To believe that your faith is a verb, You
listen.
You live your faith.
Listen.
And that
right here.
That the way that one should do that is that your work and your life's work should be to think about how you can serve in a way that is uplifting other people.
Your work and your life's work should be to think about how you can lift up other people. Incidentally, it's called the Book of Esther. It's an entire book of the Bible. It's not somewhere in Scripture. It's an entire book. In times such as these, we need to lean into trusting God, following His word, abiding. That woman had a 93% staff turnover rate at the White House as VP. Does that sound like a person who lifts people up? Those are hard jobs to get, and they're worth multi-million dollars, gajillions in mass. Individually, 2.5 a year. Because you put in your lobbying bio, I served under the Vice President of the United States of America. 93% staff turnover rate because she lifts people up. She lifts people up by cackling and laughing her way through the fact that there are women who will be sometime this year in prison by men because men are women. Come on. She lifts people up by, as the country is very literally in Seattle and Tacoma and Kenosha, Wisconsin, and St. Louis, Missouri, as there are shoot and move battles between domestic terrorists in St. Louis, Missouri, as Kenosha, Wisconsin is, parts of it are burned to the ground, as Seattle is attacked night after night, multiple attempts to murder cops, as cop and ambush went up by about 300%. As that's all going on, she takes to Twitter and says, hey, bail these people out so they can do more, because she's lifting people up. Because that's her thinking about how she can use her life to have faith as a verb. Incidentally, by the way, it's love as a verb. Love as a verb. Biblical love are actions, not feelings. But man, is she animated by her faith, though, isn't she, though? So how is it that Trump makes any progress in this? I mean, I've made the case. He's the guy who came to our house and said, dig here. Van Jones has thoughts on this. Van Jones, who said, shed the radical skin to get the radical results. That's paraphrasing. Van Jones is the guy who said, look, infiltrate this system. Go in and wear suits and ties. Be polite and effete, well-educated. Go in and speak the language of the enemy, but be subversive from within. He's a brilliant man, and I think he's actually moderated somewhat over time, and maybe that's just how men work. But he has a theory on how Trump is getting away with all of this. As I'm looking over the live chat right now, I'd mentioned Jay Caldwell. That's actually a guy I know and have met and know him well. He is the dad of Alan from Alan Soap. So if you ever want to meet John, he's actually in the live chat room right now. Want to ask him questions about the soap, etc. He just told me that someone purchased their 20th order of Alan Soaps. We're talking about businesses buying out cases of this to take the liquid soap and put it into their businesses so they can have the conversation. Hey, what's this soap? I've never seen this before. So you have an opportunity to go, oh, it's really cool. Let me tell you about this. This is a soap company that makes their soap in America. It's all natural. It's made by a family with 3 generations of soap making expertise. And then you can show them a picture of Ian and Alan. It's Ian's blend is the liquid blend. Alan's are the solid soaps. And you can talk to them about the purpose of this company is, first of all, to make this incredible soap. And secondly, to hire people like Alan and Ian. And now this young lady who works there, because the rest of the party would just have them tossed out, stored in a box, because of their placement on the autism spectrum. And in the case of Alan, these very difficult physical circumstances he had, that at 13, he's been through 18 operations. You can have that conversation. You can, if you're in the business of doing shower installs or working in people's homes, so you're a plumber, buy some of this soap as a leave behind gift, because it speaks to who you are, that you know all lives matter. You can go buy this soap right now at allensoaps.com/Todd. That's allensoaps.com/Todd, and jump into the live stream and say hi to John. allensoaps.com/Todd. Here's Van Jones with an explanation about how Trump's getting away with it all.
Look, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are not taking the same exam.
Yeah.
And I think it bothers people. Yeah. They're not taking the same exam. He gets to be lawless. She has to be flawless. That's what's unfair. That's what's unfair. That's what's unfair tonight. That's what's unfair tonight. They're not taking the same exam. Look, she has policies. She may not articulate them perfectly every time. She may not put the stories in the right places, but she's fighting for actual ideas that will help real people. And he's talking about people's penises. And so they're not taking the same exam, and that's pissing people off. It's pissing me off.
Well, and I'm also old enough to remember that if your fiscal plans were actually said to bankrupt the Social Security Trust Fund in sooner years, Donald Trump's, that would be a campaign-destroying issue. But we just gloss over things with Donald Trump.
Yeah, just gloss over it. Your network, CNN, spent 4 years saying he's a Russian plant. Kamala Harris's regime and the people who run her and Biden have jailed political opponents for speech. Oren Shar for speech. They're trying to put the meme guy. Simply retweeted a meme that said you can vote for Hillary Clinton via text. They're trying to put him in prison, saying he committed stochastic terrorism, which was a law created to stop the KKK from beating up black people or threatening to bleak them up when they went to the polls. Stochastic terrorism. He's facing a prison sentence. Enrique Tarrio wasn't in Washington, D.C. for Jan 6. He's in for 22, 23 years. They offered him, hey, you don't have to go to prison. All you have to do is lie and say President Trump put you up to this. Steve Bannon is in prison, being held over a sentence because he is good for the one of the acts that President Trump signed. First Step Act, to get people back out after they're in for their first offense. Yeah, he defied a congressional subpoena just like Merrick Garland does to this day, just like Angelo Mayorkas does to this day, just as how many other Democrats did it to this day. He's in prison for speech. They don't want him communicating with the Trump campaign. He's one of the big leaders of the Trump campaign. Lawless? Oh, we can't secure the border. Or better yet, with Kamala Harris, we can't have voter ID. That means someone has to have a Xerox machine in their house. President Trump, dig here. Dig right here. Lord, thank you for reminding us to use the simple things to shame the wise. Thank you for working through President Trump, and may God protect all of our ballots. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind, and please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.